Hey guys, so today the countdown winds down. We are down to within 1 day of leaving for Tennessee, and so we're going to have a lot of fun on this trip. Come along with me. We got some prep work to do yet just before we go. So today we're going to do some of the final prep that's necessary to do to the motorhome. I never do this stuff until the day before. So gonna have you come along with me. Oh, and by the way, subscribe to the channel for me, would you please? Subscribe to it, like the video, and watch it on through. This might be pretty good for anyone who is trying to know what all's involved in getting a motorhome ready before you actually leave to go on your trip. One thing I always do before I leave is assess what kind of camping I'm going to be doing. So this time around, there's going to be some nights where I'm going to be staying in some places where I don't have hookups. As a matter of fact, probably doing some boondocking for the first time in this motorhome, so I'm really looking forward to the boondocking. But also, even at some of the campgrounds, the hookups are going to be limited. So this time around, I'm going to try to make sure that the rig has about a half a tank full of water, of fresh water, to carry with me. Now my motorhome carries about 100 gallons, or a little over 100 gallons. It's a lot of weight to carry down the road, so I want to make sure I have about 50 gallons, and that'll get me from here to the eastern tip of Tennessee. Okay, now that we've got the water going into the tank, let's go over here and check and see how things are looking. So this tank, this line right here is what I'm interested in. And right now we are in the green at 2/3. And if I have 2/3 of a tank of water, that is more than enough. So let's go turn this thing off and put the hose away. Well, now that we got the water in the rig and everything's up to where it needs to be, and according to the meter, that should have me somewhere right around, I'm guessing around 60, 66 gallons, something like that. That's going to be more than enough for this trip. That'll get me there, and of course when I'm at the campground in Tennessee, I'll be hooked up to some local resources, and that'll get me through that time. But I probably will have to empty my tanks before I leave Tennessee to head back. But at any rate, now it's time for the next chore. Let's talk a little bit about tires. Tires on an RV are everything. You've got to take care of your tires, because if your tires fail you, you're down. And on my rig, I've got 6 of them to look into. So one of the things I always do before I get ready to head out on a trip of any length is I go around to make sure that everything is at the proper tire pressure. Now, just for a little information, on one of these diesel rigs, these are the tires that I have here are the same size tires that you would find on most commercial trucks, although they are designed and manufactured for use on recreational vehicles. So that said, just like a truck tire though, they do tend to go bad before they wear out. In other words, the rubber has oil in it, and over time, with the rig sitting in places for long periods of time, and depending upon what kind of surface you're sitting on, that causes the tires to possibly dry rot sooner. Unlike a car tire, where a car tire will pretty much last you until the tread's gone, but on the truck tires, it's a complete different story. So I've already checked on these tires to make sure that everything around the tire looks good. So I'm very, very confident in the tire getting me where I need to go and not blowing out on me. But the one thing that I always do check is to make sure that I have the proper inflation on the tires. So on the fronts, I always, according to the manufacturer's recs, I always put 95 pounds of pressure in both of the fronts. And then on the back, where a lot of the weight is, each of the 4 tires gets 105 pounds of pressure. So we're going to go check all those and make sure that we're where we need to be. And if we're down a little bit, well, we'll fill them up with some air. We turn on the rig. I've got a compressor in here that will allow me to air the tires up right here. This is a great little pressure gauge that I picked up a few years ago, and it's one of those kind that you can actually put up to your tire, and if you are overinflated, it has a little valve down here where you can fine-tune the amount of pressure in your tire. Picked this up, and I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but I picked it up at Camping World. Okay, so this one's down about 15 pounds, so I'm going to go ahead and get the rig fired up so that way the compressor will get to running, and then we can get this thing aired up completely. I went ahead and hooked up an air chuck right here in my motorhome so that way I have a place to plug the hose into. All right, now that we have all the tires where they need to be, so the last thing I'm going to do before I start hooking up the Jeep and doing some other things is I'm going to put water in all of my batteries. I've got 6 of them up here, and let's make sure that all the battery cells are nice and topped off with some distilled water, so that way we, as we're driving down the road, they'll get a good charge, and we'll have plenty of battery and not have to worry about anything on this trip. See, that was a pretty easy chore filling the batteries. Back when I first started doing this channel a couple years ago, I did a short little video on the Pro Fill system, and I'll tell you what, that has been so wonderful when it comes to making sure that the battery levels are maintained in this motorhome, because I can fill up 3 batteries at one time with that squeeze tube, and I'll tell you what, it sure does make it nice. You can fill your batteries up in all of about a minute, so it's definitely worth the purchase if you are spending time out there hovering over the top of your battery with a pitcher and some distilled water. So aside from washing the windshield and hooking the Jeep up to the rig, we're ready to go. So thank you for joining me on this last minute prep that goes on before you take off on your trip. And be watching, because we're going to have a lot more to come in the weeks ahead. So thank you for coming along. Be sure to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and we'll talk to you later.